And speaking of timely, I don't care if it's timely or not. I think we need to discuss what's going on in what can only be described the mess that is AEW. Bruh. All I know is there's a certain somebody on this show that has been saying for the last couple of years, don't believe that it's all tooth and gums in that locker room because it's a wrestling locker room. Do you feel vindicated now?
No, I don't feel vindicated. And before we jump into this again, this is getting to the patrons early. I'm hoping to drop this today as we're talking for the patrons. So if you're a patron, you're hearing this on hopefully on Friday, September 9th.
If you're
Hopefully
a
I have enough
patron, you
time.
also know what impact last night's game had on me and Half Pint's football picks.
Yeah, that's true too.
There you
That's
go.
true too.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I want to, as we jump into this discussion about AEW and what's going on, there are two mindsets that I think everybody needs to have. One of the things that Doc and I have a lot of experience with is working in corporate America. And
Mm-hmm.
we understand how things are supposed to work as it pertains to employees and executive vice presidents and things of that nature. Now, at the same time,
Oversee bookers and overseers versus the workers.
bookers and overseers versus workers. Okay, so there's an aspect, that aspect. There's also the aspect of this is a pro wrestling company that just happens to be, I'd say, the second biggest company, at least in America for sure, and arguably in the world, depending on where you put them. But now as I say all that, I have been wanting to talk to you about this, and I'm actually all glad we had to wait a few days to record because there's been other things that have developed since then, since this all happened. Now, um, I don't feel vindicated by all this, but it drives a point home that nothing is always perfect. I think we already knew nothing was perfect when Cody left, and there was an NDA. He wasn't going to speak on the reason for leaving and all that stuff. So this is not the first we're hearing about people not getting along in this company. This is the most vocal we've seen it, but this is not the first. But
Okay, so do
Doc,
we need to talk about, do we need
let's
to
talk
walk
about
through
it.
what happened or does everybody know? What are we doing here?
Yeah, we can talk about what happened. Go, you want to start?
Well, apparently, here's the thing. I don't watch, the main reason I don't watch the show is I'm at a kid's soccer practice on Wednesday nights. And to be fair, it's not the times I do watch it, it's not good enough to record and keep up with. That's fair. Now I listen to Cornette review the show, and I'm up with my problem is a lot of times when I watch the show, I'm thinking about Corny's names for people rather than their real names, and I get confused, like Penelope Pit Stop and Pizzeria Uno and all that. So I generally know what's going on, big broad strokes. I don't know everything. Here's the real scoop for all of us out there listening. None of us know the true whole story because we weren't there. That's another
Mhm.
piece of this puzzle. Um, but from what I do know, um, basically the and on some level, Hangman Adam Page went out there and cut a promo on Punk and kind of went sideways from the I won't say script because I don't think they do scripts, but maybe took some shots.
Went into business for himself based on what Punk said
Right.
in a promo on
And
AEW a few weeks back.
and so as a result, they get to this most recent pay per view, and after their pay per views, they do these media scrums. And unless you're going to do some angles, that's the dumbest idea of all time.
It's a play on what happens in real sports, quote unquote real sports, even though a lot of this stuff is the work too, right? Um, kayfabe, brother. No, it's a play. It's a take from real sports, and I started thinking more about this. I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner
God, that is a
because of
great
these media
point.
scrums. Because you're opening up things, you're giving direct access to wrestlers and wrestlers who don't like things reporters say to them. And this is a different world in the NFL or NBA where you see a player get mad at the reporter. It's different. It's totally different. Like the view on the sports media in that example versus in wrestling, where the wrestling media is smart to all of it, is different than in real sports where, a reporter's just being critical of your favorite football player, NBA player, and your NBA player is like, screw it. But the NBA player doesn't act like he
Well,
wants to
and let me
fucking
ask you,
knock out the reporter.
let me ask you a quick question though. I mean, it's standard protocol, isn't it, in wrestling to go out after the show because you're keyed up after the show, right? Everybody's got adrenaline.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you're hitting them when they got adrenaline. And I know they do post games pressers in football, in every sport, but it's different.
Yeah, it's not the same.
And I'm going to say this: if they haven't been using these to work angles, then shame on them.
So agree, but let's get back to it. So you, like you said, Adam Page went into business for himself and pissed Punk off. The other side of it is CM Punk has got legitimate heat with Colt Cabana, and it was reported. I don't know what reporter did this. If Dave was the reporter or if it was Brian
It didn't
Alvarez.
sound like it.
I don't think it was either, or if it was Mike Johnson, or if it was Wade Keller. I don't know what reporter out there or legitimate, say legitimate in quotes, it's an oxymoron, wrestling media personality, journalist. I say that in the largest air quotes. I don't know which one of them actually reported this, but evidently there was a report that the Young Bucks and Kenny reported to one of these people that Punk got Colt moved to ROH or fired, and that set off Punk originally in this presser. Now, I want to say something, Doc. I'm a Punk fan, but I need to say something before we continue this. Punk is wrong dragging Colt Cabana's name through the mud right there. He could have made his point about whiny little bitches and EVPs reporting things to the media. He could have even brought up the fact that they shouldn't have said that he got Colt fired or moved to ROH. But he didn't need to air out all that dirty laundry that, whether true or untrue, it just didn't need to be said. Like, he didn't need, that was not the opportunity for him. He could have made his point without just talking all that mess about Colt, who's not there at that moment to defend himself. I didn't like that part of it. I thought that was just low class. Now, at the same time, yeah, I'm not a Bucks fan or Omega fan. So him calling them out was funny. I don't think you can do it in the grand scheme of things when you're a corporation, because I'm going to go back to what we said a second ago about you and I having worked in corporations. You can, as the little man on a totem pole, and I know Punk is Punk, but you can, as an employee, call your EVPs effing children, and you're tired and frustrated and you're tired of working with effing children, bro. That's not how it works. So, I thought it was funny, but you can't do that. At the same time, I understand his frustration, because if that was reported and these whiny little, and I believe that they are trying to undercut him and cut him off at the knees because he gets over more than them from most. I understand everybody's not a Punk fan. I get it. I get why he feels the way he does, and I believe it needed to be addressed, but it definitely went sideways at that presser. What did you think as I say that?
So first of all, he has now made it okay for everyone in the industry like us to eat muffins while we
That was tremendous. He was eating the muffins the whole time.
licking
God.
his finger, bloody face, eating his muffins, licking his fingers, cutting promos. Okay, so what did I think? First of all, AEW is not a corporation. They're maybe a corporate environment.
Okay, that's what I meant. That's a great clarification. Corporate
The
environment.
the other piece to it is that in most of our shoot jobs, we can't do that. But it's a little. This is where it's a little more akin to pro sports. If Drew Brees wanted to call out Saints leadership, he could.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true. He could,
Now,
but I don't
the
know if he would
question to
call
your
them
point is,
whiny little bitches either.
well, the question to your point is, should he? And that's a just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Um, so I don't I don't get the whole point. Like I get the feeling that Punk isn't well liked in the locker room from things I've heard, but you don't know what that means. See, that's the whole point of us not being there. It's like, is it because people are jealous? Or is it because he's a bad guy, or maybe not bad guy, but he's hard to deal with personally? And maybe the answer is a little bit of both. Um,
Vocal. He's not the type of dude who, and I've been around dudes like this that is afraid to express how they feel about things at any moment in time. In the wrestling business, there's that that ruffles feathers. Like, and I can see how it ruffles those little whiny little kids that like the super
so,
kick.
so, first of all, I'm a big believer in if you don't want people to explode the scene, don't start shit. So, and I live this personally is if you don't like my response, maybe you shouldn't have started stuff because I'm better at the response. I'll say anything. I don't care.
Okay. Are you saying
So,
you back in Punk when you say that?
um, my whole frustration with all of this is we're going to play this like kindergarten and make everybody shake hands when there's a whole bunch of money to be made.
Hmm.
And
I don't even think they're gonna be playing like kindergarten. My prediction is, and this hasn't happened as we record this on September 9th, 2022. Punk's gonna walk away. They'll say he resigned. He's gonna leave.
well, he's got a torn pec now.
I don't care. Those things can recover. And the little freaking buffoons over there who, God, I just can't stand them, bro. They have go. Everything about them is go away. Like, I
Dude,
mean, I've been watching
you
it, and let me tell you
yeah,
something. If Punk's gone, and I'm a Punk fan, but I'm calling him out. He's wrong for what he did here, especially with the Cabana thing. It's just dirty, bro. You don't do that. I don't care if you got like the whole point was to expose them snitching on the whole going to the wrestling media. It wasn't to talk about the personal stuff with Colt, and we're only hearing one side of that. So I don't like that's wrong. Just he shouldn't have did that. But if he's gone and those buffoons and morons and jackasses are still there, I ain't got no time for that company. There's
okay,
nothing there for
so
me.
I had a rare Wednesday off, and I actually watched the show Wednesday night, this past Wednesday night, post fight. And it was so bad that Latrell was like, "Can you turn this off? It's kind of making me mad." He had never seen Orange Cassidy. He looked at that guy and was like, "What?" He looked at me and goes, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah,
He's
I
smart
got
enough to
nothing,
know
bro.
that John Moxley can't draw a dime.
I wouldn't say that, but he's not my favorite as we've discussed.
And I mean, there's talent in that organ. That's the frustrating part. So to me, all of this comes back to Tony Khan not running a tight ship or a wrestling company the right way. Because there's talent there. You can't tell me even that I don't like Moxley, but with Moxley and I don't like Omega, but Omega and Punk and Danielson and FTR and Lethal and Wardlow and God help us MJF. You've got enough to do something. But it did. You know what? Watching Wednesday night made me feel like I felt like It was like Russo booking without the questionable like treatment of women.
I I say they got nothing for me as I'm FT. I like FTR though, but it's just I think you got to give him a pass a little bit from the past Wednesday, September the 7th, only because they had to call an audible because of everything happening with the investigation. You know that show was spit and duct tape put together late. They had the major shift directions. I mean, literally two of their champions, that trio's bull crap, and their world champion is stripped. So there's a big time audible called. I don't know. I wouldn't judge him on that. Now, as I say that, I fast forward through it like generally weekly. I hit through it in about 20 minutes. I watch the people that I generally enjoy, and then I FF through the rest. It's just how I watch wrestling nowadays.
But let me tell you something. In a real company, the Bucks and Omega receive some sort of punishment as well.
This is the problem with this. This is the problem with it. I totally agree. Okay, if you're a quote unquote EVP, you, whether you like it or not, you need to be you are held to a higher standard. Not even need to be.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Bruh, you could have an employee. Here's the thing, bruh. Let me take it out of the wrestling context. You could have an employee stand up, get on social media, call you a mother effing elephant that likes to jab prosthetic limbs up your butthole, and that you are a worthless piece of human trash and can say ungodly things to you. It does not, and you know what? That employee will be dealt with heavily. But you, as the EVP, should not publicly, not even publicly, you should not react.
You have to rise above it.
You got to sit in your office. You got to take it. And you know what's going to get dealt with? Human resources is going to handle that situation. And it will eventually be dealt with by the people who can deal with it that are not you. Now, you may make a statement about it at a later time, but you, like Doc just said, have to rise above it. If you want to be an EVP, you got to act like a damn EVP. You can't just decide you're going to go knock on somebody's door and deal with it, even if, and I don't even want to hear this part, well, Punk said to come over to his locker room. You know what? People angry say a lot of dumb stuff all the time. And this ain't excusing his behavior because that was wrong. But at the same time, the damn EVPs, no matter how tough they think they are, and ain't none of them tough. The only one who I think could probably whoop me is Omega. The Bucks, I tie them up like a pretzel and just
we have a challenge. Luke, get it in the ring.
Because they're not, bro. They're not men. They're just whiny little punks, and it's just dumb. And I don't like doing this, but it's just like, oh, we gonna go knock on the door. Allegedly, all this is allegedly. We're gonna knock on the door, and we're gonna go give him a piece of our mind because he said he wanted to.
And then get sour when it turns on us.
Well, and see, that's the thing I don't know. So was it just, because then you hear the conflicting reports. Was it just Punk in the room with his dog when they knocked and it's 3-on-1? Because if it's 3-on-1, guess what? At that point, I got to defend myself because I don't know what you're the aggressor. I know I called you over here, but I hate to say it, but now you're the aggressor. And then, or is even if Ace Steel is supposedly in there. I mean, there's so many reports about who was in there, who wasn't in there, a chair was thrown. Bruh, I mean, the thing is, all that to say, I don't care what Punk said. He shouldn't have said it. But at the same time, you're a damn EVP, man. You don't just go over there barking up a tree.
Okay, so here's another thought. The wrestling business is predicated on one thing, in my opinion. Stars. You need stars.
Mm-hmm.
In this equation, who's the star? Who's the biggest star?
Punk's a star. I mean, it's not even a question.
Then I don't care your titles. That's stupid anyway. The playing field is tilted towards him. Sorry, that's the way the world works.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew Brees can say that about the front office, But if Ian Book says it, well, I'm sorry, son, but you need to learn to keep your mouth shut. Well, Drew said
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, the star can get away with a lot more.
I mean, I say this a lot around my house. You know, we have the State Fair of Texas, and it comes in September and October. I say, you know, the fair comes to town once a year. Life ain't fair.
Yeah.
Now, I think Punk's going to take time to recover, realize, hey, I don't want to deal with these children. I'm hurt. I got money. I'm going home.
I'm tired and I'm old. I'm tired of dealing with effing children. That's a
Yeah,
hell
I
of
saw
a line.
we're the stars in this equation.
Say that again.
We're the stars here.
You didn't like that tweet?
No,
I thought it was funny, man.
I'm
I'm
sure you
tired.
did.
I'm old, and I'm dealing with children.
I'm gonna chalk that up to you being delirious with fever.
That was great.
But the real problem here, the real problem in all of this is that Punk got hurt. Because otherwise, let's build some angles, bro. We got our next year of booking written out for us tonight. Thanks, boys.
You know, that would be the best part of it. Like, let's just assume it's not a work. I don't think it's a work. I think Punk's got an attitude, and I think they got their feelings hurt when he called them EVPs and they couldn't manage a target. I thought that was a phenomenal line. But like, if you and me, like, I don't. Here's the thing, we joke about everything's a work. Okay, I don't think it's a work. I think all this was a shoot, and I think that it would be great if they actually would turn it into an actual money maker. That's what a real wrestling promotion would do back in the day, but this is not
and
what
and
that
if
is
if the
anymore.
goal's not to draw money, because I get we have it's a TV product now. How about it would at least generate some entertaining television? Because what I watched last night was not, or Wednesday night was not entertaining. And I saw,
Well,
and it don't
yeah.
say they put it together in a second. MJF was out there.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he had
Moxley
already
was
come
out
back at the
there.
pay per view, so I mean, I get that part. But the problem is, they were still putting it together on the fly. Man, they just suspended like four of their top talents. I mean, you know, yeah, I said top talents. I mean, they put themselves over nonstop. The Bucks and
So your
Omega.
thought is that Punk will quietly just not come back.
I think they're gonna like. Here's my prediction. I think they force his hand and pay him a lot of money to go away, and the EVPs, which this is the dumbest thing known to man when we're talking about wrestling, they continue to serve their suspension for some time. They come back, and then nothing ends up happening. It's just, it is what it is at that point. Like, they're back, and a year from now, this is forgotten. We'll talk about it for years, but in the end, Punk is pushed out and gone. And then I'm gonna say something very controversial.
Oh
Don't be
God,
surprised if that fool pops up in WWE. Like,
I can't see
I
it.
I can't see it either, but just something like, let me tell you something. Anger will make you do. He would be pissed if they push him out the door and suspend him and essentially fire him and force him to resign. He being Punk. Anger makes you do things you would never do.
As the great Rage Against the Machine once said, anger is a gift.
It will push you to do things you think you would never want to
I
do,
just don't
or
see the doofus son-in-law saying, "Here's a mic."
I don't either, but at the same time, the doofus son-in-law might think, we're going to draw some money here with this. I'm going to use him to help me because it benefits me. There's a lot of things you will allow to happen when it
Well,
benefits
okay,
you.
then that would be the ultimate. Did Triple H learn the lessons of Vince? Because Vince would do it.
That's
Let's
what
do
I'm
business.
saying. And remember, I told you this years ago.
But don't
This is not
forget,
even.
but don't forget, Triple H was part of a clique that was vindictive and nasty, just like the EVPs are now.
Yeah, and
So
that's what I'm saying.
did he move on and learn?
And that's why I told you, like, Vince, I used to always say that. I was like, when it came to Punk and WWE, I was like, never say never, man. There's been a lot of people you would never think would come back to that place, and they came back, and Vince, for the sake of making money, was like, we're good. And I'm just saying, man, that like I would never say never when it comes to that. Now, do I really think it'll happen? I don't.
You know what would be great TV is if Vince showed up to manage Punk to get back at Triple H.
It's not gonna.
Yeah.
So let me. Okay, so my
Taking
prediction
my
is
company back.
my prediction is Punk is forced out, whether he calls it a resignation or they call it flat out firing him, whatever. Punk is forced out. He's gone from there. And the EVPs, after spending some time suspended, end up back, and they'll be their trios champion again, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that's what happens too, or do you think Punk survives this and continues with AEW after serving suspension?
From where we sit, knowing what we know, I think he's gone too. I agree with what you said. The biggest problem is I feel like AEW, everybody's like, it's like a WCW. I think it's like WCW 1991 that we're going to review tonight. There's a lot of talent here floating around, but they're not putting together compelling enough angles and matches and storylines that make that you can sink your teeth in.
No, they got talent, man.
So the problems that this company has are going to exist no matter who comes and goes, because apparently this is how Tony chooses to run his company.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree.
You've heard Corny say it. That guy needs a booker.
He needs a lot of stuff, man. I mean, I don't feel sorry for him, but it just.
I don't generally feel sorry for heirs to billionaire fortunes.
So, yeah, that's what I say. I don't feel sorry for him, but he's in over his head with dealing with these egos, man. Like, this is, I got someone sent this to me on Twitter. It was like, well, what would Bill Watts do? Well, first off, like, let's be real here. It wouldn't even got to this point with Bill Watts. Right? First off, there's multiple layers. Let me clarify. There's multiple layers of this. What would Bill Watts do? And for as critical as I can be of Bill Watts on other things, Bill Watts, if one, in the day and age he was a booker, is not going to have a media scrum. Now, that's rule number one. Now, that's not to say that Bill Watts did not have issues behind closed doors. Now, because I don't care the wrestling promotion, whether it was Watts or Vince or whatever, there's, like, if you think fights in locker rooms are new, dude, this has been going on since the beginning of time, because you're dealing with egos. Like, the whole professional wrestling business is a fake fight. So it's egos about guys who think they should be more over than the other guy, or doesn't want to do the job, or doesn't want to look up at the lights, or this guy thinks he's better than this one. So you're dealing with constant egos. There's been, do you know how many fights I saw in locker rooms on the Outlaw Mud Show independent level? There was one case, I want to say the guys' names. People out there, if you're from South Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, you'll know this story, because it kind of made the rounds. Someone I knew well power bombed another gentleman in the ring, and it was a stiff power bomb. One of this guy's friends came up to this guy in the back and goes, "Bruh, let me ask you a question. I heard you've been running your mouth that you did that stiff power bomb to my friend on purpose." And he looked up at the guy saying this. He goes, "And what if I did?" And the guy's like, "You're a fucking asshole if you did." You know what the guy sitting in the chair that power bombed the guy and was kind of stiff with the power bomb, you know what he did? He got up and jacked the dude in the jaw, and it was over like that. Okay, fight over. Like, just, there's so many fights that happen in wrestling locker rooms that you're just not privy to, because generally back in the day, well, there was no social media for the guys to go running to, and the wrestling media and Dave, they might have got a hold of it and they may have reported it, but it didn't get the legs that it would get now. So this whole thing about guys not getting along, that's not new. This is old. This is old business. Like, it's what it was.
Hey, It's
Now,
old
but
business, but how we're handling it is the only thing that's new.
well, it's because it's more public now. But what Watts? So the reason I'm bringing this up is I have no doubt in my mind in Bill Watts' territory there were fights like this that have been reported and alleged with this situation. So when people say, well, what would Bill Watts do? First, there wouldn't have been a media scrum for Bill Watts to suspend anyone from based on these actions. What would Bill Watts have done if his guys would have fought in the locker room? There probably would have been some fines handed out. He probably would have let them settle it like men and get it over with. And once they were done, get your head in gear, and we're gonna go do
He
some
would have
real
taxed
business
them
now in
both.
front of. He would have texted them both. But I mean, he would have dealt with it like any other old school wrestler. You know what? Y'all better put this shit aside and get it situated. I mean, fight it out if you got to. Like I remember Robert Fuller telling that story one time. I forget who was fighting in the back, and he was like, "Hey, you gonna break it up?" He's like, "Hell no, I'm gonna let them two bulls gas it out before I get in the middle of it." And that's exactly what would have happened. Because in the real world, fights don't last 20 minutes. Trust me, it's 5 minutes tops, and it's generally over. Because one guy is gonna get blown up or knocked out. Or both of them are going to be so gassed out, they're just going to pass out and they ain't got no more. Fights you see in movies ain't how it goes down. It's really quick, generally speaking, okay? So the dudes would have fought it and been over with, and then you'd have never heard nothing else about it. So, like, when people say, oh, what would Bill Watts do? Man, this wouldn't even got to this point. Or if it would have got to this point, it wouldn't have been because of what was said in a freaking media scrum. Like, that's just, like, this just doesn't happen. I mean, what are we doing here? But that's just my 2 cents on the Bill Watts question I got. I had to bring that up, Doc, because a couple people sent me that on Twitter.
I just don't trust anything to be handled correctly, and for it to come out with anything that's advantageous to the viewing audience. And that's the disappointing part, is that there's entertainment to be had out of this, and none of it's going to happen.
But in closing, you do think that Punk it will be pushed out, whether it's fired, resigned, or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, and the Bucks and Omega, what happens with them?
But I'm also a person that believes, like, look, if I got elementary school children, and if they're down at the school being a bully or causing a problem, they're in big trouble at home. But I'm also an opinion that if somebody messes with you, the easiest way to stop it is to pop them. And I'll deal with the teachers.
You gotta be careful with that when you're dealing with black children, though, because you can't tell the black kid to knock out the white kid.
As it turns out, and I hope this doesn't come as a huge surprise to anyone, I don't have any black children. So
I do. So I'm just saying, I can't just be like, knock that asshole out. It's not gonna go over the same as it goes over with Latrell.
In kindergarten, somebody messed with Latrell's little sister, Latrella, and
Latrella.
And
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And
you just made her black.
Well, Latrell and Latrella. So a little boy was messing with her. She kicked him in the nuts.
That's nice. Classy.
And they called her to the counselor, and they're like, why did you kick him? And she was messing with me. I mean, he was messing with me. She didn't get in any trouble. And guess what? She didn't get messed with again. And so some of this is, we've pussified the entire world. And again, I'm not advocating walking around punching people and whatever. But sometimes it's best to just, like you said, you punch somebody and it's over. That's it.
Yeah. One other thing too. I saw some memes about like, who are we kidding? Punk didn't knock nobody else. Did you see his fights in UFC? Like, okay, so be realistic for a second. Punk's fighting world-class fighters in UFC. That really is not an indication of if he can fight at all. I mean, he's literally against people who are professional fighters. I'm gonna like, it's kind of hard to say he can't fight. I mean, he got in there.
And if we're being honest, Ace Steel is the one to worry about in that whole equation.
It's like, I actually think Kenny can go. Like, I'm serious, bro. I wouldn't fight Kenny Omega. I mean, I'm talking about the Bucks and having fun with them, and like, I really believe I could just knock them out with one punch.
All right. I'm telling the champ, get this in the ring.
Bro, them dudes ain't tough, man. Just look at them.
Let's get the contracts drawn up. Harper and I will both co-manage you, and we'll this would be great.
Bruh, if Harper and I literally were put in an octagon with those two, the fight would end inside of a minute. I'm telling you. Like, it wouldn't
Can
even
I
be
be
a question.
outside sniffing ether?
Bruh, Harper would grab one of them, whichever one, by the neck. And Harper is strong. Don't let the goofiness fool you with him sometime. He would grab them by the neck, get them on the ground, and it would be over so quickly. He would be mad at me for taking too long with the other one and start cutting a promo on me because I was wasting his time. I'm just saying. Now, Omega, I, I think he can go, bro. And I ain't trying to fight him. I'm bringing a bat with me if that's the case, and I'm going to have to deal with him by other means. But allegedly. I mean, obviously, I'm just playing. But yeah, man. But so recapping one more time, Doc. You think Punk is pushed out, whether that's fire, resignation,
I'm not
whatever.
going to change my answer. Yes, I think
Okay.
he's done with the company.
And the Bucks, what happens with them?
Nothing.
No. You can't say nothing. Do they come back after the suspension?
Oh,
Like what?
100%. Yeah. This is
Okay.
their playground, and this is where we all have artistic creative freedom, and everybody has a say, and everybody plays nice, and 50-50 booking, and nobody does anything interesting
Did you
because we're all
see?
afraid that somebody's going to get their little feelings hurt. Dude, the in that media scrum, and you can argue whether or not the content of what he said, you didn't like it, I don't care. But that's wrestling. Talk some trash about somebody. And then let's fight, fake fight to settle it.
I don't disagree with you. He just didn't need to drag Cole Cabana's name through the mud, bro.
Okay, fine. But the point is that scrum is completely misplaced because it's a wonderful avenue to talk some trash and get some shit generated.
I agree with that. And the
And so,
reason I'm
so,
harping on, go
and so,
ahead.
what I'm saying is, this is an instance. This is a sickness in the company, but the whole structure, bones, approach, skeleton of this thing is completely not correct, and so the process is broken. So it's a conveyor belt broken. So it's never going to lead anywhere good. It's always
Yeah,
just going to
I don't
spit
disagree.
things in the floor. Yeah,
I don't
it
disagree.
looks like wrestling, but it's never going to be the wrestling you want it to be because the parts aren't in place to make that happen.
Yeah, that's fair.
And let me
I
ask you this. What wrestling promotion have you ever been around where having the boys have an outside say in what they're doing turning out well?
just look at WCW and why it died. You can't have everybody can't have creative control, bro. You can't do that, man. If everybody has creative control, then nobody does, and
That's right.
it's just a you gotta for Vince McMahon's all his flaws, and boy, is there a lot of them at this point in time. The one thing that was good is and bad at the same time is the buck stopped with him. It was he had the last word. So now he was a pathetic human being, as we've come to find out with how he paid for the punani and things like that. But you
What's wrong
know,
with that?
see, this is why we get in trouble because you say stupid stuff. But you know, just you have to have somewhere where it stops with them. Hey, one other thing, you heard me mention Cole Cabana at the start of this, and then we'll move on and talk about Saturday night, and we got some 5-star reviews. So the thing about Cole Cabana, I know Cornette likes to bury him. I know a lot of people, quite a few people who know Cole Cabana well. They do nothing but sing Cole Cabana's praises as being a nice guy, a good dude, a quality human being. And these are people I really trust. One of them specifically feels this way, and he's one of the nicest humans I know. So just saying, I want to repeat, he did not need to drag Colt Cabana's
I
name
don't
into
care.
that.
I want, to me, it's a, he and Colt aren't going to get in the ring. Maybe they should, but
That would be compelling.
yeah, let's talk some trash. Let's blur the lines. Let's get some personal issues involved, and let's have some. If we're not going to try to draw money, let's at least have some entertaining television. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
hate
hear
to
you on
say
that.
it, but it ain't that hard. I mean, Tony's sitting there uncomfortable and scared when he ought to be sitting there rubbing his hands together, going, "Thanks, boys. We just booked the next 9 months to a year."
Did you see how? Have you seen? Did you watch it and see how uncomfortable he
I
looked?
watched some of it, and he looked like he wanted to dig a hole up there. Well, don't provide the avenue for shit like this to happen, and then get scurred when it does.
Bruh,
This
he looked
this whole thing,
uncomfortable.
I don't like the Bucks and Omega, but this whole thing is Tony Khan's fault. I mean, it 100% is his fault for creating this kind of environment where things are this out of control.
Yeah, I don't
And
disagree with you at all. You're 100%
and
right on that.
if you're going to let it be out of control, work it to your advantage. And he
No,
can't
you're
even do
absolutely
that.
right. You're absolutely
Well,
right.
we still have old product to talk about. We agree on, I think, the steps of what's going to happen here.